everything you need to know about thalidomide chemotherapy drugs. What is a tumour? A tumour is actually when cells are growing out of control, and the body, as a way of protecting itself, surrounds those cells in a jacket of healthy cells. That's why when you get those malignant cells in the lungs, well, the body uses lung cells to surround them. The same for liver, and it's the same for kidneys and so on. There is just there is no different types. There is just one. It's just in different places. So our body's way of protecting itself is to surround those tumours with healthy cells, while surgery is when they are cutting out the tumour. And essentially, they release those cells out and it spreads. So what happens is, usually about 5 years, though tumours start to come back again. It takes that time for the body to start making tumours again, because after 5 years, the doctors stop watching you. And when it comes back, they say it's a new. So that's how it works. What the doctors know about it, known medically as a group of various diseases involving unregulated cell growth. There are many different types of abnormal cells related in some way to genetics. It is known what causes. The focus has been on things that increase the risk of is incurable but can be treated with very expensive drugs. So what can they do with it? They can only use what is known as a allopathic method, which is treat only the symptoms, not the actual cause. That sounds a bit ridiculous. That's like taking your car into a garage because the engine warning light has come on and the mechanic takes out the ball. Now the symptom's gone. You can't see the warning light, so everything must be okay now, right? No. The problem is still there, getting worse and worse, and eventually there will be a catastrophic failure. And the mechanic or doctor will say, oh, it's got nothing to do with what we took out, i.e. the tumour or the light bulb or the cell. So the three treatments that they have got for you are surgery, where they hack into you with very sharp knives. Next is radiation therapy, where they blast you with radiation, which causes, by the way, and chemotherapy, which are drug poisons like thalidomide, which the Nazis was using back in the day. Look it up. They're using chemotherapy drugs today. Potential side effects: emotional incontinence, sexual dysfunctions, external waste, colostomy bags, possible inadvertent damage to other organs. Surgery can also spread the cells to other sites. Surgery removes tumours and affected organs, i.e. symptoms, but does not address the underlying 4 and 5% long-term success rate. That's a 96% failure rate. Radiation therapy is to burn away the symptoms, i.e. the tumour. But once again, the radiation is way more effective on healthy cells. So it literally burns away the jacket, i.e. good cells that surround the tumour, and lets the tumour cells out so they spread. And the side effects are radiation poisoning, hair loss, damage of the lungs, and other stuff. Chemotherapy is some sort of thing. Success rate is 4 and 5%. This time they use very powerful poisons to actually try and kill the cells in the tumour. The symptoms, but again, it's much more effective at killing healthy cells and lets the tumour out. So it spreads. Chemo has lots of side effects, like chemo brain. It's like a brain fog. It's like you're drunk all the time, not all there, daydreaming. Accidental chemo is where it spills onto the skin. It looks like it scars you or burns. This is what they injected into you to get chemo. Not a good idea, in my opinion. So what does doctors themselves say? Clearly, the chemo is supposedly a strong track record with Hodgkin's disease. Lymphoma is actually a lie. Patients who underwent chemo were 14 times more likely to develop leukemia and 6 more times likely to develop of the bones, joints and soft tissues than those patients who did not undergo chemo. That was by Dr. John Diamond, MD. If a patient who were getting radiation or chemotherapy, the tumour gets smaller and smaller, but the patient would be getting sicker and sicker. At autopsy, we would hear, "Isn't that marvellous? The tumour is gone." Yes, it was, but so was the patient. That was Dr. Phillips Binzel, MD. Most cancer patients die of chemotherapy. Chemotherapy does not eliminate breast cancer or lung cancer. This has not been documented for over a decade, yet doctors still use this chemotherapy for tumours. Women with breast cancer are more likely to die faster with chemo or from without it. It was Dr. Alan Levin, MD. In 1976, doctors went on strike in Los Angeles for 1 month, and the numbers of deaths fell by 18%. During a doctors' strike on Israel in 1983, the mortality rate dropped by 50%. Death by doctor is so common that the term iatrogenic death has been coined for it. And I bet when those doctors went back to work again, the death toll went straight back up again. More doctors confessing to intentionally diagnosing healthy people to make more money. It happens more often than you can imagine. But more doctors are finally getting caught in the act of misrepresenting and diagnosing healthy people to turn a quick buck from kickbacks. On chemotherapy poisons. Why shouldn't doctors lie when the entire industry is one gigantic fabrication from start to finish? Is it any wonder that society worldwide put a far greater financial initiative on chemotherapy and radiation research than diseases? Preventing diseases doesn't make money, but treating diseases seriously does. Take Dr. Farid Feita, a prominent doctor in Michigan who admitted in court 1 year ago to intentionally and wrongfully diagnosing healthy people with. Fetter also admitted to giving them chemotherapy drugs for the purpose of making a profit. Were his patients shocked? No, they weren't. bet there were who would ever suspect a doctor of faking a diagnosis to collect money. It's unconscionable, yet it happens. With and almost every disease that medical doctors can generate income through kickbacks and commissions based on the volumes of patients treated with specific pharmaceuticals, like anything people are used as a commodity. Industry exposed to fraud, the science is false.